Reggie here, and I want to welcome you to another one of my videos. A few days ago, the trailer for the Fantastic Four movie dropped, and I was honestly blown away by what I saw, and I think many of you were as well. Historically, when a trailer like this drops, people are super excited, and as a result of that, there is a surge in activity. There's a surge in people jumping online, buying up any and every book that they can get their hands on associated with that movie. We are in a slightly different place now versus maybe where we were before, and I wanted to see whether there would be a surge in activity associated with the FF. And so I did a little bit of an analysis. I will tell you that there was no surge. There's some interesting things happening, but not the surge that we would normally see. Before we get to the data, I want to talk a little bit about the methodology that I employed. I specifically looked at the 30-day transactional data for graded books in Go Collect, specifically CGC books. And I looked at the last 30 days and I grouped that data into two buckets: post-trailer, pre-trailer. The trailer dropped on 2/4. Today is 2/8. So we have roughly 3 full days of transactional data that we're going to be looking at. Could I have gone a little bit longer? Maybe. But I wanted to look for that impulsivity. I wanted to look at that saw trailer, took action. So if I go too long, then I start getting other noise on one end. And if you went a little bit later, then you would get some noise on the other end. So 30 days pre-post, and again, about 3 full days of transactional data that we're going to be looking at. I'm specifically looking at CGC data because the books we're going to be looking at are the types of books that people would normally send to CGC and not CBCS because of the value delta that exists. There's some CBCS sales out there, of course, but that tends to be a very small percentage of the overall market. So looking at CGC made a whole lot more sense. With that said, let's go ahead and jump into the data. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of examples. And I think a great place to start this whole conversation is around some of the more obvious books that come to mind when you think about that trailer. And it's the convergence of the Fantastic Four and Galactus. And I'm specifically going to start off with Fantastic Four issue number 48, which is the first appearance of the Silver Surfer. And it's also the cameo appearance of Galactus. I felt like this was a really good place for us to start. I'm actually going to shift myself around to make this a little bit larger for you guys to be able to see things. So what I want to do here is to kind of rip through some of the data, make a couple of observations. One of the things that has to be called out here is that there aren't like a ton of copies of Fantastic Four 48 out there. Just across all labels at CGC, there are just over 10,000 of them out there, specifically 10,220 across all the various labels. We are going to focus on, through the course of this video, the universal, the blue labels. All right. So one of the cool things about Go Collect is that they show the data this way, and I find this to be extremely helpful. So you have your grade, your census count, the number of sales, the current FMV, which is a calculation of fair market value, the fair market value at the 1-year average, the 90-day average, and the 30-day, right? So we're really going to focus on this last column here, transactions that have taken place in the last 30 days. And as I scroll through the sales for Fantastic Four 48, you can see that there are not a ton of, points at which there was a sale in the last 30 days. I mean, a healthy number of them, if you will. But what I did is I went into each and every one of these 30-day transactions, and I specifically looked at what sold. I looked at the post-trailer period, which is the last couple of days, and I looked at the pre-trailer period, going back again, no more than 30 days, basically back to January is what I did. So those are the two periods that we're going to be comparing, is the before the trailer and the after the trailer. And as I went through each one of the transactions that have taken place in the last 30 days, specifically for CGC, Blue Label, Universal, what we saw is that there were 12 a total of 12 transactions across all grades for the post-trailer period. 12 comics were sold in the last couple of days versus the pre-period. There were 26 transactions, post-trailer 12. So I'm calling that flat. I'm calling it flat because you can't have a negative on sales, but fewer books sold in the post-trailer than the pre-trailer. That might be the way to kind of look at it. All right. So that was Fantastic Four 48, cameo of Galactus. Let's look at Fantastic Four 49. He is on the cover of 49. This is his first full appearance. The expectation here is that if there was a book that would sell, it would be this book. It would be this one. Gorgeous, gorgeous cover here by Jack Kirby. But let's dig into it, right? So fewer copies of this book out there than 48. There are a total of 6,885 blue labels. I'm sorry, 6,885 total copies across all grades out there. And then as I scroll through the data, again, focus on this last column here. You can see that there, again, is a healthy number of points, grades at which there was a transaction. When you tabulate it, when you add it all up, there was a total of 22 post-trailer sales. 22 post-trailer. There was an exact number pre-trailer, 22. 22 transactions pre-trailer, 22 after the trailer across all grades, going from an 8.5 all the way down to a 1.5. And again, I'm calling that flat. The expectation is that there would be an uptick. It is the exact same. I'm calling it flat in terms of activity for Fantastic Four 49. Let's go ahead and take a look at FF 50, which is the end of the Galactus trilogy, 48, 49, 50. This is a book that doesn't get as much attention as the others, and maybe rightly so. It's just a battle between Silver Surfer and Galactus. Fewer copies of this one out there that have been graded, a total of 4,713 copies. And again, as you go through this last column over here, you can see the points at which there was some transactional data. I did the analysis, I did the count, and what I found is that post-trailer, there were 10 transactions, 10 sales of Fantastic Four 50, post-trailer, pre-trailer 14. More in the pre-period than the post. Again, I am saying that is flat. In my mind, I thought that if there was an uptick, it would have been here. I was expecting kind of sort of an uptick in these books. The way that we historically have seen it, that does not appear to be the case. The total number of transactions for all three of these books, post-trailer, 44 individual transactions after the trailer dropped. In the pre-trailer period, 62 transactions. So again, flat. I call it flat. There is no noticeable uptick in volume as a result of this trailer dropping. So here's the thing. Those, again, were the obvious books. Let's take a look at maybe some less obvious books for a hot moment. Let's look at Fantastic Four number 13. And this book is the first Watcher. I think it's also the first appearance of the Red Ghost. That there was an appearance of somebody in the trailer that we think is going to take on the role of the Red Ghost. So it made sense again for maybe a little bit of a speculative play to take a look at this book. Not a ton of copies of this one either. But let's go ahead and take a look. And as we scroll down, last column, you can see even fewer transactions here. Again, I dug into the data. Post-trailer, 6 individual transactions took place post-trailer. Pre-trailer, exact same number, 6. Again, flat here with this book. I do not have this book, and I actually kind of want this because I dig the Watcher. I'd like to pick this one up, but maybe now is maybe not the time to actually do it. So let's take a look at another book. This is going to be Fantastic Four issue number 3. A little bit maybe of a speculative play, right? This is the first time that we see the Fantastic Four in their costumes. It is also the first appearance of the Baxter Building. And the Baxter Building look looked dope. It looked dope in that trailer. So again, this might be an opportunity for people to jump on board with the Fantastic Four as a result of the trailer. There are 1,590 total graded copies of this by CGC. Scrolling through the data here, last column. This is also not a cheap book. 7.5 30-day average, $5,000. Not exactly a cheap book. 6.5, $4,000. So maybe this isn't one that people are going to speculate on because it's not a cheap book. But I dug into the data. Post trailer, 1. Post trailer, a single transaction happened. Pre trailer, 6. More activity pre trailer versus post trailer. Let's go with another. We're going to go with another speculative play here. Fantastic Four. Oh, if I can spell. Fantastic Four. We're going to go with 579. Little bit of a speculative play here. Hopefully you all are enjoying this video. And if you are, I want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel. The data would suggest that about 70% of my views come from non-subscribers. If you're watching this video and you haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit the button. This one is the first appearance of the Future Foundation. First appearance of the Future Foundation. It is also part of the reason why I'm saying this is a speculative play is because in some of the promotional materials for the FF, they showed the Future Foundation logo. And again, back in the day, this would have been something that people heavily speculated on and heavily bought. But in fact, there have been 0 sales. There have been zero sales of this book in the last 30 and also in the last 90 and also in the last year, at least according to Go Collect. There's only 22 graded copies out there. So not a lot of activity happening there. Maybe people are picking this book up raw. I did not necessarily look at that because these, again, is data from Go Collect, all graded stuff here. Not a whole lot of interest and the Future Foundation speculation. Let's go ahead and search for another book. We're going to go ahead and search for Fantastic Four 209. Again, these are all books that are associated with the FF. Speculation was the name of the game back in the day. This is one that I thought people would speculate on. This is the first appearance of Herbie. First appearance of Herbie, who was prominently featured in the trailer. This is a book, again, that I don't have, and I had to resist the temptation of going out and buying it, just for lots of different reasons. Only 330 copies of this on the census. You can see here, not a whole lot of activity in the last 30 days. When you look at the data, there has actually been an increase in this one. There has actually been an increase in sales activity. Post-trailer, 11 sales. Pre-trailer, four transactions. This is one, unlike maybe some of the others that we're looking at, that is not expensive. This is, I mean, a 9.8, $268 on average, a 9.6, $132. But just in general, 15 transactions. That's just not a lot of interest in this book at all. I feel like back in the COVID days, you could see 15 an hour, right? This is an entire month, if you will, and 15 transactions. So we have purposefully not looked at the most obvious book when it comes to the FF, that being Fantastic Four issue number 1. So let's go ahead and look at those data now. And I think this one is it right here. Fantastic Four issue number 1, the first appearance, of course, of the FF, first appearance of Mole Man, origin of the FF. Fantastic book. Fantastic book. There are only 3,067 copies of this book out there graded by CGC. And as I mentioned, CBCS has graded this book. They tend to have a lot fewer books of this caliber graded by them. We can certainly talk about the reasons why behind that another day, but not a cheap book. FF1, not a cheap book. You can see here the 30-day average for a 5.0, $20,000. $20,000 at 3.5, $13,500. Again, dug into the data of Fantastic Four issue number 1. Post-trailer, 0. Post-trailer, 0 sales. Pre-trailer, there was 5. There were 5. There was a 5.0 that sold and a 3.5 5 that actually sold, which is the data that you are seeing right there. And again, potentially this is a good thing. Potentially it is a good thing that people are not rushing out to buy these books. Maybe what you have here, because the Fantastic Four movie wasn't exactly a surprise, you potentially have a lot of people that have picked these books up over the last couple of years that are not selling them now because the market isn't quite where the market was before. And so if you don't have to sell a really great book at a loss, you probably won't sell that book at a loss. You're going to hold on to it. So potentially what you're seeing is not a lot of sales activity because the people that bought these books are choosing not to sell them right now because they knew the movie was coming. And if they were to sell it, they're not going to make a crazy amount of money. So it doesn't make sense to offload the book. Potentially, that is what we are seeing here. But we're also seeing, again, not a whole lot in the way of speculation. Almost every single one of these has been flat, with the exception of Fantastic Four issue number 209, the first appearance of Herbie, and that was a relatively cheap book in comparison to some of the others that we've looked at. But let's do this. Let's look at another spec book, right? This is Earth X issue number 12. This is the first appearance of the female Silver Surfer, and a lot of people think that female Silver Surfer will be the Silver Surfer of the FF movie. So here we have Earth X issue 12. I have a copy, at least one copy of this book. I think it's Shia LaBelle. I think Shia LaBelle is the name of the character. Wonderful Alex Ross cover here. You can see not a whole lot of these have been graded. A total of 94 have been graded. Maybe there's more on the way to CGC, but not a lot in terms of value here. A 9.8 has a 30-day average of $239. But again, dug into the data here, there were 3 sales of this book post-trailer at a 9.8, 2 at a 9.6, and that was it. So basically 5 post-trailer transactions of Earth X issue number 12. Pre, there were 3. So again, an increase, but not a material one, and essentially it's flat. I mean, a 2-book increase is not significant in my mind in any way, shape, or form. Maybe statistically, if you look at there's 94 copies, let's not go there. But I kind of crunched all the numbers, right? I looked at all of the books that we just looked at, all of the pre and all of the post. There was a total of 67 total transactions post-trailer. Pre, there was 86. That is a net difference of 19. So 19 fewer transactions post-trailer than pre. Again, not necessarily what I was expecting when I started this, but maybe again, that is a good thing.
Big city dreams, but that's a small town thing. I thought the big city life was the only way you could be crowned king.